Okay, I'd like to thank James for inviting me to give this short talk on behalf of Whitby beekeepers. It's just a short introductory talk on beekeeping. Bees really have sort of taken over my life. I've been involved in beekeeping since I got my first pair of wellies, but actually didn't have much option in my family because my father's kept bees since he was at school as well. So it was a kind of a natural thing that I would actually help out. Since then, it's actually taken over. It's become more of a hobby. We actually liken it, it's a hobby that's got out of control. I'm actually secretary for Whitby Beekeepers. I'm vice president of Yorkshire, and I'm also a delegate to the British Beekeepers Association as well. In my spare time, I'm an examiner for beekeeping, various exams. I also judge at local shows, and I go around the country lecturing on beekeeping as well. Any of my lectures on beekeeping are about keeping bees as simple as possible. Beekeepers are fantastic at complicating beekeeping. So all my talks are geared around keeping bees as simple and as near natural as possible. Because that's what bees do. It's only beekeepers that make things complicated. Bees contribute at least 2 million to the UK economy in pollination services on an annual basis. And you'll have probably noticed this year that there's a lack of apples, and most of your fruit crops are pretty poor this year. That's because of the weather and the fact that the bees haven't built up this year in sufficient numbers. And the poor summer weather we've had has had a massive impact on the pollination. The bees just haven't been able to get out of the hive to pollinate the flowers and actually bring in the nectar. And our honey crop this year is next to nothing as well. So the bees this year have gone into winter quite stressed, really, the fact that they haven't built up in numbers over the summer. They haven't had sufficient reserves of food, and we've had major problems with rearing or new queens that were actually created this year actually getting mated properly. So I've seen more what we call supersedia, where one new queen is taking over from the old one, that's occurred this year because the new queens haven't been mated successfully. And that's really weather dependent. The weather's our biggest single problem this year. But we've also got problems with lack of forage in general, and what was touched on earlier about the verges. It's best if the verges are left for us, especially in the spring of the year, when all those plants, especially dandelions, are left for the bees to forage on dandelion honey and dandelion pollen, because that's one of the major food sources at the beginning of the year. So as a plea to most gardeners, just leave your dandelions alone. You know, bad gardeners are brilliant for bees. So don't spray off your dandelions. We need them from a source of pollen in the early spring. That's it. My beekeeping, well, I've learned an awful lot, and I still continue to learn about beekeeping. I still go to a lot of lectures that we have either at a local county or national level, and it's always right that you can always learn something from the lectures that you go to. Even having said that, I thought it would be useful about this time last year to actually write down the way we actually keep our bees, and I produced this beekeeping guide. I toyed with what to call it, but eventually it got called the Jefferson Beekeeping Guide. When you read the first paragraph, you'll find out some of the other options of calling it, but I better not mention it today. So not a very interesting title, but it's how we keep our bees. And generally in the summer months, we run probably about 120 colonies of bees. When you think most hobbyist beekeepers might run up to a dozen, we are not commercial, but as I said before, it's a hobby that's got out of control. We run about 80 production colonies of bees normally, with about another 40 odd nursery colonies. And then I reduce those for going into winter. The reason we do that, and some of the things we do, we actually try to preserve the near native black bee. And that's one of the functions in the breeding program that I run, is to try and make sure we breed black native bees. Number of reasons for that. They are more suited to the environment in our area, especially suitable for the weather. They don't build up particularly strong and quickly in the spring like some foreign races of bees would do, but they actually manage themselves throughout the year to build up when there's a forage available. Basically, they know what the local weather is going to be like. If we start bringing in bees from outside the area, there's a high risk of diseases, and there's a high risk of the positive benefits we've got in our local black bee being outbred. So we actually operate a Whitby Beekeepers bee breeding program to maintain the native black bee. It's something I'm particularly passionate about. I do a lot of talks about breeding bees, and if anybody's actually read any beekeeping books, when they talk about breeding bees, they start to talk about queen rearing. Well, I'm actually against queen rearing. As beekeepers, we don't rear queens, we raise colonies of bees. And I keep banging on about this, and eventually people will actually listen to me and actually start to think of the breeding colonies of bees as an entity rather than breeding one queen. The basic reasons for that is that it's very easy to get a situation where you get inbreeding. And if you've only got half a dozen colonies of bees and you're raising queens and you're trying to get them mated, there's a high probability that the queen is getting mated by drones which very closely resemble that family. Basically, you can have queens getting mated by their brothers, which cannot really be a good thing in the long term. So when we're actually selecting for good breeding stock, this is a picture of a brood frame. And what you'll notice is there's missing cells. That's actually a bad sign, because those missing cells are what the bees have actually determined that the larvae in those cells are actually too closely related to the rest of the bees in the colony, and they've eliminated them. So they've aborted them, basically, and that's not a good sign. So when we're actually breeding bees, we don't want to be breeding colonies from bees that are showing this level of missing cells. We want nice patches with no missing cells. So it's clearly an indication of inbreeding. And if you think about it at a farming level, the farmer doesn't maintain the same tup for year after year, does he? He'll swap it with the neighbouring farms and things like that. And it's just like any form of husbandry. We're looking for good, clean conditions and general husbandry principles about keeping healthy bees. So it actually isn't that difficult. But then there's also the problem where you may have heard of the varroa mite, which is a parasitic mite that lives off the blood of the bee. It actually sucks the hemolymph of the bee and causes a lot of damage, introduces viruses and things like that into the bee as well. We're actually breeding bees that are tolerant to the parasitic mite, and we want to maintain that force going forward as well. So if anybody is, I don't know what we're doing for time, if anybody is interested in bees, I've just updated the Whitby Beekeepers website. It's a long web address, it's on the front of the book, but just Google Whitby Beekeepers. There's actually a list of meetings that we've got planned for 2013 already posted on the website. And we're not bothered as Whitby Beekeepers if people want to attend any of the meetings. You don't necessarily have to be a member, just turn up. If you want to keep bees later on, then become a member. But the first thing is just turn up to the meetings. We'll try and make you welcome. If I'm giving a talk, I maybe not be focusing on making people welcome initially till I've got the talk out of the way. Because a lot of times I practice my new lectures on my local association first. If they criticise it, then I'll change it. Then I may go public after that. So some of the lectures I might give are a little bit first time round. But into the apiary meetings, we've got a good cross-section of apiary meetings where we look at what we need to do in the colony for the following month. So we're looking practically at what we should do from now for the following month for the next meeting. And those meetings go around a number of people's apiaries. And it's really useful because we've got to get good cross-section of where different people keep their bees. I have had the advantage of being a seasonal bee inspector for a few years as well. And because I do examinations outside the area, I do get to see a lot more about how different areas keep bees. And I think in our area, I think we have some really, really good beekeepers that have learnt a lot in a short space of time. That's not the case with every association. So ongoing training is actually very important, I think, as a beekeeper. So just pop along to any of the meetings. We've got an open apiary meeting in April. I forgot the date, but it's on the website. Hopefully I'll get some publicity with the Whitby Gazette beforehand to remind people. But that's intended that it's the first opportunity of the year to go inside a hive of bees, get up close and personal, and hopefully not get stung. But remember, if bees didn't sting, everybody would keep them.